Today's scripture reading brings us to 2 Samuel chapter 17. At the start of this chapter, David is on the lam. He has fled Jerusalem, not out of fear, but out of favor for the people. Rather than risk a bloodbath with Absalom coming back to Jerusalem, he has left and is now awaiting word on what's going to happen in Jerusalem, or I should say what's going on in Jerusalem. He's kind of got a spy network set up, and we're going to see that come to fruition here in this chapter. We see, I had this chapter broken down into 4 sections, verses 1 through 14. I have that titled as Hushai's counsel overthrows Ahithophel's. Ahithophel, as you look, it says here at the latter part of chapter 16, "In the counsel of Ahithophel, which he counseled in those days, was as if a man had inquired at the oracle of God. So was all the counsel of Ahithophel, both with David and with Absalom." So Ahithophel was a very intelligent counselor. And now, but we also know that Ahithophel was Bathsheba's grandfather, and Ahithophel now has changed sides. He's went with Absalom. No doubt out of anger for what David had done with Bathsheba and her husband Uriah the Hittite. In these first 14 verses, I should say, we see that Ahithophel gives his advice on what to do now. Absalom says, okay, what do we do? Ahithophel says, look, you give me 12,000 men, and we're going to go out and we're going to overthrow them. It's going to be rapid, and this is a relatively small force, a very strategic strike. We're going to get David, and the rest will just kind of fall in line. So the only one we're going to be after is David, and just let me do that. And Ahithophel's wanting to lead this charge, right? And so everyone liked what he said, but then he said, let's see what Hushai has to say. They bring Hushai in and they say, Ahithophel has said this, now what say you? And Hushai, again, he's working undercover for David. And he's trying to buy David some time, get things organized, and send David word on what's going to happen. And so Hushai suggests essentially the opposite. Not a small strategic force, but get everybody from Dan to Beersheba, man. Get them all. Get this huge army and go out after them. And whereas Ahithophel was looking at a small strategic strike, only looking to get David, Hushai is suggesting you get this great big army and you kill them all. That's what Hushai is recommending. I want you to look at how he is doing this. He uses these illustrations as he is speaking. He says, man, they're going to be as a bear robbed of her whelps in the field. And he says in verse number 10, and he also that is valiant, whose heart is as the heart of a lion. He's using all of this imagery to paint a picture for Absalom, which is something that, Ahithophel didn't do. Verse number 11, he says, from Dan even to Beersheba, as the sand that is by the sea from multitude, as dew that falleth on the ground. And he is, again, painting this picture to Absalom to try to persuade him to follow his advice as opposed to Ahithophel's. And one other thing that we see is that Hushai is playing on the fear that's unspoken of Absalom and the other men that's there, because they knew who David was. And he brings up a few different things here. In verse number 8 and 10, he says, thou knowest thy father and his men, they be mighty men. Verse number 10, he that is valiant, whose heart is as the heart of a lion, shall utterly melt. For all Israel knoweth that thy father is a mighty man, and they which be with him are valiant men. He's painting this, putting this doubt in Absalom's mind, thinking, now listen, it ain't going to be that easy. These are tough warriors that you're going after. So Hushai's counsel is then taken. Ahithophel's has been discarded. And then verse 15 through 22, I have that title, David's spies bring him the news. So after the news has been, or after the decision's been made, we're going to go with Hushai's plan instead of Ahithophel's. Hushai goes out and he speaks unto the priests there. He speaks unto Zadok and Abiathar and says, this is what's happening. Now you need to go send word unto David. Tell him to go. In case they don't listen to me, you need to tell him to go now. And so they send word unto their children, Jonathan. And, there's this whole big spy conspiracy going on that the word's gotten out, but then a young boy sees what's happening, that the priest's sons have left, and he goes, tells Absalom, and Absalom sends his servants out to investigate. And then the woman there, the wench, is how she's mentioned in verse number 17, just means a maidservant. It reminded me of medieval times. But anyway, the woman takes and she hides the men in a well and covers it up and puts some parched corn on there to hide them. And it's very reminiscent of, the lady that hid the spies as they came to, where was it? Jericho. The harlot, I can't think of her. Rahab, how Rahab hid the spies there in Joshua. Hides the spies, the servants come and don't find them. She misdirects them, and then they go and tell David. David takes his men on up, of course, listens to the advice of the spies. And then I have the next one here, and he goes passes on over Jordan. Verse number 23 is by itself because I felt it was very important that we highlight this verse, because it says this, and when Ahithophel saw that his counsel was not followed, he saddled his ass and arose and gat him home to his house, to his city, and put his household in order and hanged himself and died and was buried in the sepulchre of his father. Now, the great question is, well, why did he hang himself? I don't think that Ahithophel was a powder. I don't think that Ahithophel was just simply going, well, he didn't take my advice, so I'll show him. I don't think it was that at all. I think Ahithophel understood the ramifications of the decision that Absalom had made. He did not listen to his advice, and instead he listened to Hushai's advice, and he knew that he was now on the losing side. And because he was on the losing side, David was going to come back. David was going to reclaim his kingdom. And what did that mean for Ahithophel? What it meant was this, and that is that he was most likely going to be killed, made an example of by David, or else banished. He was going to be shown humiliated in some way, humiliated and killed or something. And he figured this was the better way out. Just go ahead and get my stuff in order and kill myself, because there was, this is what's going to happen. And then lastly, verses 24 through 29, the remainder of this chapter, we see that David came to Ahanaim. If I say it enough times, I'm going to say it right. I think that's how it's said. I can't remember now. Either way, Mahanaim and over Jordan. And then we see verses 24 through 29, I have that titled, David is refreshed in Mahanaim. Gosh. Either way, he goes there, and we see that he is refreshed by strangers, essentially. One of them is an Ammonite prince. Another one is a former Machir there in verse number 27. Machir, the son of Amiel of Lodabar. He was the one that was Mephibosheth was staying in his house. And so he was a Saul sympathizer, if nothing else, by taking care of Saul's grandson, the only remaining one from his seed. And he is one that now is bringing provision unto David. Maybe David's kindness unto Mephibosheth has really turned the heart of Machir. It's just, we don't know a whole lot about him other than these two instances in Scripture. And then Barzillai, Ai, the Gileadite, and they bring him provisions. They bring him, and you see all those purple ands there, all the things in which they brought unto David and unto his people, to be a blessing unto him in his time of need. And what a blessing it is when people are willing to come and give unto someone that's hurting, to try to bring them some type of relief, try to bring them some type of refreshment. This is kind of the same principle when someone is in bereavement, when you try to feed the family and things, just try to offer some sort of comfort in time of need. It's a wonderful thing that these people had reached out unto David to give this unto him. And this sets the stage for chapter 18, when all of this is going to kind of come to a head. Israel and Absalom's pitched in the land of Gilead. David is there in the wilderness in Mahanaim, something like that. And we're going to see the conclusion of the matter in chapter 18. So, Lord willing, we will see you tomorrow with that.